Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today, all about online learning. We're going to be taking a look at a YouTube video you sent over.
Yeah, looks like a good one too.
It's called Advantages and Disadvantages of Online Learning.
From CareU Animation, right?
That's the one. So whether you're, thinking about maybe taking an online course yourself or already in one and trying to figure out how to make the most of it.
We're just curious about what this whole online learning thing is all about.
Exactly. We're here to kind of break it down and pull out some of the most interesting insights and give you some food for thought. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to explore, what this shift towards digital learning could mean in the bigger picture too. It's a pretty exciting time to be a student, that's for sure.
Okay, so this video jumps right in and starts listing all the reasons why online learning can be so appealing.
Yeah, it gets right to it.
And right off the bat, flexibility. Obviously, that's a huge one.
I mean, yeah, who doesn't want more flexibility?
Right. Like imagine being able to tailor your study schedule to fit around your life instead of the other way around, right?
Really?
No more rushing to class after work or having to miss family events because of some, rigid timetable.
It's a game changer for accessibility too. Think about people who live in rural areas or maybe folks with disabilities who might not have easy access to traditional education.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Online learning can open doors that were previously closed.
Yeah.
And even cooler, it can connect learners from all over the world.
Wow, yeah.
Create this global exchange of ideas and perspectives.
It's pretty wild when you stop and think about it.
Yeah, sure.
And then there's the cost factor too, right? No commuting costs, no need to buy those crazy expensive textbooks.
It all adds up.
Big time.
Yeah.
Which can really, I think, ease that financial burden that comes with, pursuing education. So that's definitely a plus. But one advantage I have to admit, kind of surprised me was the environmental impact.
Oh.
Yeah, the video mentions that online learning can actually be more eco-friendly
Interesting.
because of reduced paper usage, fewer people commuting, things like that. Had you, ever considered that angle before?
Not really. I guess it makes sense, though, when you think about it. Could this be, a key part of a more sustainable approach to education in the future?
That's a really good question. What do you think?
It's definitely something to consider. I mean, there are so many factors to weigh, but it's a conversation worth having.
Absolutely. But let's be real for a sec. No educational approach is perfect.
Mm.
And this video does a pretty good job of acknowledging that and highlighting some of the challenges that come with online learning too.
Yeah, it doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, for sure. And one that I think a lot of people can relate to is that, that struggle to stay focused and motivated when you're learning independently. I mean, distractions are everywhere, right?
Oh, tell me about it, especially at home.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to get sidetracked.
I know I'm not the only one whose eyes start to wander over to their phone or, that TV in the background.
Oh, no, you're definitely not alone there. That's my weakness for sure.
But on a more serious note, one of the things the video brings up is the lack of face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
And how that can be a real hurdle for some people.
Building those relationships with instructors and classmates.
Yeah.
Getting that immediate feedback, that sense of camaraderie.
Yeah.
It's definitely harder to replicate in an online environment.
It is. And then there's, this other big question the video raises. It's okay, how do employers actually view online degrees and certifications?
Right.
Is there still a stigma? Are they seen as equal to traditional qualifications?
Big questions.
Yeah, big questions to think about. And I think, it's something to really consider when you're weighing your options.
What stands out to you as the biggest challenge so far?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
There are so many things to consider, right?
I guess for me it would probably be finding that balance between flexibility and structure.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome to have that freedom to set your own schedule, but it's also really easy to get sidetracked if you don't have some kind of routine.
Totally. And actually this video has some really good suggestions for actually making it work, which I'm excited to get into.
Me too. Let's talk strategy. It's interesting you bring up that tension between flexibility and structure because the video actually offers some really practical advice on how to make that work for you. And it all starts with something we touched on earlier, routine.
You're right. They make a big deal about setting a routine. And I have to admit, at first I thought, routine. Sounds kind of rigid for something supposed to be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
But they make a good case for it. If you treat online learning like just another part of your day, scheduling time for it just like you would a meeting or a workout.
Right.
It helps you stay consistent and avoid procrastination.
It's all about building those habits. I remember when I was taking an online graphic design course, I designated specific evenings for working on assignments. Having that structure helped me stay motivated and prevented those "I'll just do it tomorrow" spirals.
I can totally see that. It's like
Yeah.
tricking your brain into thinking, okay, this is study time now,
Mm.
instead of letting it wander off to Netflix or social media. And speaking of distractions, the video has some good tips on that front too. It's all about creating a dedicated study space, minimizing those temptations, and being mindful of your digital habits.
Think about what works best for you. Maybe it's noise canceling headphones, a website blocker to keep those social media tabs at bay, or even just letting your family know, okay, from 7 to 8 p.m., I'm in study mode, do not disturb. It's about setting those boundaries to protect your focus.
Those are all great ideas. It's like creating your own little learning sanctuary, free from the chaos of everyday life. But one thing that always worries me about online learning is the potential for feeling isolated. You're not physically going to class, interacting with classmates and instructors. It's easy to feel like you're on this journey alone.
That's a very valid concern, and the video acknowledges that. But it also highlights the importance of being proactive and finding ways to connect with others. Many online courses have discussion forums or group projects built in, which can be a great way to interact with your peers and get different perspectives.
And even if your specific course doesn't have those features, there are tons of online communities and study groups you can join. It's like creating your own virtual study buddy system, which can make a huge difference in terms of motivation and accountability.
Exactly. And don't forget the power of reaching out directly to your instructors. They're there to support you. So don't hesitate to ask questions, seek clarification, or even just share your thoughts and insights. The more engaged you are, the more connected you'll feel.
And that brings us to another key point. The video emphasizes the importance of actively seeking feedback. It can be tempting to just passively absorb the material, but taking the time to reflect on what you're learning, ask questions, and get input from others can really deepen your understanding.
Feedback is like a mirror, helping you see your strengths and weaknesses more clearly. It can be from instructors' peers or even just reflecting on your own progress. The key is to be open to it and use it to improve.
That's a great analogy. Okay, we've talked a lot about the mindset and strategies for successful online learning. But before we move on, there's one more practical tip from the video that I think is worth highlighting, addressing technical issues promptly.
Oh, absolutely. This one is so important. Imagine you're in the middle of a fascinating lecture and suddenly your internet cuts out or your microphone stops working. Talk about a buzzkill. It can really disrupt your flow and make it hard to get back on track.
It's like hitting a pothole in the middle of a smooth ride. The video stresses the importance of not letting those technical glitches derail your learning. If you're having problems, reach out to tech support, troubleshoot the issue, or find a workaround. A smooth technical experience can make all the difference in your enjoyment and success.
It's all about removing those barriers and allowing yourself to focus on what truly matters, the learning process itself. But speaking of barriers, let's circle back to something we discussed earlier, the perception of online degrees and certifications. This is something that comes up a lot, and it's important to address.
You're right. I think there's still some lingering uncertainty out there about how these qualifications are viewed by employers. Is it changing? Is online learning gaining more acceptance?
It's a complex issue, and the answer isn't always black and white. It can depend on the specific field, the reputation of the institution offering the program, and even individual employer perspectives.
Huh.
But I think it's safe to say that the tide is turning.
It really feels like we're at like a turning point.
Mm.
Online learning isn't just this niche thing anymore. It's becoming like a core part of how we learn and grow,
Right.
both personally and professionally.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that shift is reflected in the way the video wraps up. It moves beyond just listing the pros and cons and starts to offer this like more empowering perspective. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, now you have all this information, so what are you going to do with it?
Exactly. And they offer some really practical advice for like making online learning work for you, no matter what your goals are. One thing they stress is the importance of setting clear goals,
Mm.
like right from the start.
Yeah, that's huge.
Having that clear vision in mind can be incredibly motivating, especially when you hit those inevitable roadblocks,
For sure.
which, you will.
Oh, yeah, you definitely will.
It helps you stay focused and remember why you started in the first place.
It's like that saying, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Oh, that's a good one.
You need that destination to like stay on track.
I like that. And speaking of staying on track, the video also talks about the importance of developing a routine. And I know some people might hear routine and think, That sounds so boring and restrictive,
Yeah.
but they make a good point about how routine can actually enhance flexibility.
Right. Think of it this way. When you establish like dedicated study times and try to stick to them as much as possible, you're essentially creating a framework for your learning.
Okay, yeah,
It's like building a house, you know? You need that solid foundation to support everything else.
that's a great analogy.
And within that framework, you still have tons of flexibility to adjust things as needed,
Hmm,
right? Life happens, things come up, but having that routine in place, kind of like a baseline, it helps you stay consistent. It prevents you from getting like totally
well,
derailed.
totally. And speaking of distractions, the video has some really good tips for managing those too.
Oh, yeah, that's key.
It's all about being mindful of your environment and your like digital habits.
Right.
So, maybe it's noise canceling headphones or a website blocker, or even just letting your family know, hey, for the next hour, I'm in study mode. Do not disturb.
Exactly. Setting boundaries.
Yeah, it's about setting those boundaries to protect your focus.
And recognizing like when you're most likely to get sidetracked
Yeah.
and putting strategies in place. So for example, let's say checking social media is like your biggest
Oh,
weakness.
wow.
Okay, so during study time, put your phone in another room
Hmm.
or use an app to block those websites, be proactive, take control.
Love it. Those are all such good practical tips. And one that really stood out to me was the emphasis on like actually utilizing all those online resources.
Yeah.
It seems obvious, but it's so easy to get caught up in the like day-to-day of the course.
The grind.
Yeah, and forget about all those amazing tools that are out
There's
there.
so many.
We're talking like virtual study groups, online libraries, collaborative platforms, research databases. It's
Hmm.
like having this whole universe of knowledge at your fingertips.
And it's not just about accessing the information either.
Right.
It's also about like connecting with other learners,
Yeah.
getting support, finding inspiration, so much good stuff.
Totally. They talk a lot about like actively seeking feedback from your instructors, your peers, participating in discussions, really like engaging with the material. It's about making it an active experience.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Not just passively absorbing the information.
Totally. It's about creating your own learning community,
Yeah.
even if it's like, virtual.
Exactly. And that brings me to one of the most important pieces of advice in the entire video. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
They really emphasize that online learning doesn't have to be this solitary journey.
Right.
Your instructors are there to support you, so reach out, ask questions, seek clarification, even just share your thoughts, your struggles, whatever.
Yeah.
And remember, you are not alone in those struggles. Every online learner faces challenges. So don't let that get you down. Be proactive, seek support, and use those challenges as opportunities to learn and grow.
Well said. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the incredible advantages and flexibility of online learning to the very real challenges and how to overcome them. I have to say, I'm feeling pretty inspired.
Me too.
Like, the possibilities seem endless, right?
It's clear that online learning is here to stay.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this episode, we want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Knowing what you now know about the power, the potential, and the practicalities of online learning, how might you incorporate it into your life?
What are you curious about?
Yeah, what knowledge or skills would you love to gain? What doors would you like to open?
Take a moment to think about those questions and let them guide your next steps.
The beauty of online learning is that it's accessible to anyone, anywhere, at any time. So embrace the flexibility, explore the resources, and dive into the world of online education. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.